Superman logo is a lot of fun to draw, and there's a few points that make it so iconic. The top of the S merges with the border, that straight serif on top kind of makes it an arrow pointing right, and the contrast of that flat round bottom part and the graceful diagonal swoop. No wonder it's still applauded in design books and mentioned in the same breath as the most famous logos of all time. Drawing it from the front just takes a little practice. I do it like this. So you draw the crest shape, drop little equal-sized stripes on each corner, and connect them using a ruler if you want. Start with this dented rectangle here, making sure to make those two edges sharp. Add the small triangle on the bottom, remember it's a curve. Then drop a straight from this corner down and straight to the left. I like my S a little diagonal, so I slightly pencil in that diagonal band. The soft bottom flourish, then add the arch on top, making sure that the upper top of the curve hits that inside crest exactly. Little negative space in the serif part. Finish that droop also in a sharp point. Make this curve nice and graceful. Then connect the curves at the bottom, erase the connection points, and then ink over that. If the logo is drawn on the chest, you don't need a ruler, but we'll get to that later. Just for this logo itself, use a ruler for the straight lines. And this one is the make or break curve. It helps to tilt the paper so the curve fits your natural movement of your wrist. And okay, that'll do. But drawing it like this is hardly ever the case when you draw Superman or Supergirl. It becomes a whole new ball game when it's actually on their chest. Not to mention Supergirl's curvy chest. So let's do a deep dive. Quick history. In Superman's first appearance, it didn't quite feel like our logo yet, and it made a few transitions over the years. Thanks to the TV animation, kids got to know the S. And in 1978, the whole world saw Christopher Reeve, and it imprinted the classic logo in the collective conscious. In 1986, John Byrne did a reboot of the character, like they do every few decades or so, and he set the new standard. Huge emblem taking up most of the chest. Gill Kane was a great artist on Superman in the early 80s, and his logo usually just covered the pecs, while Byrne's crosses the ribcage and reaches the abs. Supergirl has had a lot of costumes over the years, and it's a bit of a puzzle to make the symbol clear, but also make sure to accentuate the curves of a lovely lady. This is an option, but not an official DC one. Okay, let's draw. With the male pecs, you basically just have to push it in the pec cleft. Some artists don't do this though, and just draw the logo like it's a hard triangle, which is still not easy to draw from all the different angles. But I think it looks cooler with those curves, like how John Byrne makes it almost look like paint on a costume. Great Michael Turner examples here as well, nicely following the curves of the chest. It helps if you imagine a net covering the pec shapes, which you can then use as a grid. So if we divide this chest in three, the side of the crest is slightly diagonal on that outside line. And in this case, the right of the crest is hitting the edge of the chest, because part of the chest is hidden from the camera. And the top of the crest fits nicely on the top of the chest shape here. Nice arch. And you see on this type of sharp pec, the bottom can be used to create some depth as well. You see it just slightly curving. And then in the diagonal part, it creeps into the chest, so it gets that little point. A very cool detail that even the inker accentuated a bit more. Yeah, great example. Okay, on to the ladies. A lot here depends on the type of fabric the suit is in. In that 80s TV show, it's a very thin material, so the breasts look very round. This newer suit is made of stronger material, and it kind of makes a triangle shape out of the torso. Third one kind of rubbery, and it's a mix of the two. As for the logos, in the 80s one I feel it's a bit out of place. I bet if it was glued on it would always come off. On the triangle the logo fits better because it just has to be bent in the middle a bit to drape over it naturally. And again in the third one, a mix of the two. So let's check some classic drawn examples. Starting with an old school classic hourglass figure. And yeah, it kind of feels like that 80s TV show material. Thin fabric, classic Michael Turner pose. Nicely following the curves, huge logo. I think I drew it a bit too small here. Then Frank Cho's version. Very nice soft curves, and I like how he puts the logo a bit higher, so just the bottom curves down a bit. Then this Stanley Lau version. kind of in the Alex Ross tradition with the realism. Looks like skin-tight spandex and the logo very thin on it, following the curves exactly. Note all the overs and unders in the outside line of the crest. Very good stuff. Okay, time for my weekly stick figure challenge. I sent this stick figure out to everybody who wanted to join, and here's me doing my entry, which is Supergirl, of course. There's no rules in the stick figure challenge, so I am changing the legs a bit. Curvy body as usual. Legs still looking weird though. Yep, that'll do. Making it easy on myself. And capes look cool when they're long, but let's make it so she doesn't step on it. And I'll go off of that Michael Turner costume, which I like. Bending the logo in 2 directions. I wasn't really thinking of a specific style, but somehow it's coming out looking like Sin City Frank Miller a bit, with those big eyes and big lips. Nothing wrong with that. Maybe a little bit more of a smile though. Let's ink this logo. Not that drastic of a change, just the outside curves and the dip in the middle. Okay, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. And as you know, when a drawing is not a home run, I tend to overdo it with the colors and effects, filters, sparkles, motion blur. Maybe not the motion blur. Here it was, the original art where I took the stick figure from. A nice clean Bruce Timm. Looking at them side by side, you see how powerful that clear and clean style of Bruce Timm is. The light moon really pulls your eye to the hourglass figure there. Nice minimal use of colors that appear in triples. The master. Okay, on to the submissions of the participants. Couple of entries from Super Chevalier this week, who I found out is also a Frank Miller fan. Perfect curve on the chest here over the breast, and smart to let the bottom fade into the ab line. I like this rough inking style. It's probably quicker than he did in this piece, where he even used hatching. But still, it doesn't feel rushed, so it could be a good style to make a whole comic in, I think. Alright, next, Storm by C19. Kirby Crackle! I like it. I would have added a small white accent here so that foot doesn't blend in with the triangle line. And I see he really put in a lot of time on this, but the only thing I feel is a bit rushed is the hair. I draw Storm a lot, and I struggle with the hair because it is white. So it makes all the lines you use super obvious to the viewer. And it's good to alter thin and thick lines, but if you use the thick ones, I would make them reach all the way behind the head because they represent a bigger shadow. So usually that shadow would go up to the head skin, if you know what I mean. Then Raoul's entry this week is of his original character. It has a nice 3D quality because of the big hand, the front leg and the back leg. Kind of working with 3 planes. Maybe curve the hatching here a little bit more to give some more flow to the cape. Great coloring on this leg, especially this is perfect. And check out this one. I'll give you 2 seconds to guess how this was colored. 1, 2, Procreate! I don't have Procreate, but I've seen a coworker use it and it looks like a really good program. Looks like real paint, right? Great shading on the white parts especially, but maybe try to get some more flow and grace in the arms and hands. The left hand feels a bit too straight for me. If you look at Bruce Timm's cover, he loves finding those straight lines in his work, but always contrasts them with curves as well. And in this case, the open hand kind of spreads that energy at the end of the arm. Just an idea. Okay, first entry of Kashek this week. Classic rooftop jump, water tower check. Great texturing on the moon. And I think I made the stick figure a bit unclear this week because a couple of entries took it for crossed legs, like he did as well. But it works though. This is a totally cool jump pose as well. Just be careful with the highlight outlining the whole shape. I can see you understand lighting by looking at the highlights and drop shadow. so I would try to have the edge highlight fade in some parts. Especially since the purple background and the black pants would not blend into each other, so the shapes would still be easy to recognize. But cool, man, keep it up. Nice ninja shoes. Here we go with this week's entry by Eli. Those powers worked out nicely. And if you look at all the ones he sent me over the weeks, he really has a recognizable style, which is very hard to do. Hey, another ninja boot. Must be something in the air. Anyway, great stuff. And as I am editing this video, one from Coben dropped into my inbox. Cool. Isn't it funny how my brain instantly said Carol Danvers? Superhero name buried deep into my memory but recalled in a microsecond. Anyway, this piece makes me think of the early Todd McFarlane art from his book. He was a few steps ahead of others, but still some underlying structure missing, and I mean this as a compliment. The way of highlighting and putting the muscles is very good, but some of the underlying shapes are rushed, like the hairline and mouth. That's why I suggest even drawing what will not be seen. I think it's a solid drawing. But we got one more. Krakoom by Felipe. Good example of today's topic in this Phoenix logo, how the point can be done with coloring as well. Works perfectly because all the attention goes to the logo because of that contrast. But I feel the chest worked so well that the legs are a little bit neglected. Maybe if they also got that 3D gloss, the chest wouldn't pop as much. But I want a little more roundness in the legs, like he has in the arms, and even the cheekbones pop nicely as well with that highlight. So yeah, very cool. Makes me want to give that Phoenix bird a try as well. Alrighty, that's it for this week. As always, I added links to the participants' art pages in the description. Join the challenge if you feel like it. A like or follow is much appreciated, and catch you next time.